Hey, how everybody doing today? What's up, Chris? Can you hear me, by the way? Let's do a quick audio check. If you guys can hear me, give me a yes in the chat. Awesome. See you guys flooding online. Nice. I'm just doodling here, giving folks some time to jump in. Watching from Brooklyn. What's going on, Sam? Patrick from Ghana. AJ from Canada. Reels JTV from London. Michael from Sierra Leone. Welcome. Manchester, Jasper. Ooh, we got someone from Russia too? I didn't know the channel extend that far. Dubai, oh man, I love to visit Dubai at some point in India. Man, you guys live some cool places I want to visit. So, man, I'm always excited to jump online with you guys, see the messages come in, the comments, just to be able to connect with so much cool people from around the world, man. It's great. Nigeria, Tanzania, Egypt, Kenya. Man, I only see these places in pictures, man, and I'm like, I want to be able to visit, but you know, God's willing, I'll be able to check out these places and meet some of you guys in person. Okay, so, you know me, I like to jump on live and we're just going to keep it real and raw, you know, but PG. So, what we want to talk about today is what I call the hamster wheel. So we're going to talk about a little bit the hamster wheel, and then we're going to jump into the questions. So I'm going to ignore the chat for now so I can, get out what's on my heart. So what do I call the musician's hamster wheel? All right, check it. So y'all probably familiar with the hamster on the wheel, right? They put the hamster on the wheel and that thing runs. He's getting some good exercise in, but he's not going anywhere. He's just right there. Hamster wheel running every day as fast as he can, but he's not going anywhere. So how's that equates to now the gospel thing I'm talking about? Are you one of those gospel musicians? You've been playing for a while. You're actively playing for your church, which means every Sunday or every Saturday, probably you play for your choir. You're up there, you're playing week after week, but you look back over the past year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you're like, I have not improved. That means you feel, every week you're learning music and you're preparing for service, but you're not really growing. You haven't really grown much. And it's like similar to you being on this hamster wheel where you're practicing stuff, but you're not seeing any progress. And let's talk about that for a bit, because that's a real problem for a lot of gospel musicians. The big questions, and I get this a lot from folks, so I decided, let me tackle this in a live chat. The big question is, how do I continue to grow as a pianist week after week, month after month, year after year? But also find the time to make sure that I'm preparing the songs for choir, I'm learning the songs for Sunday morning worship or Saturday morning worship. How do I keep those two balanced? Because I know if you're actively playing for your church, probably every week there's music being thrown at you from the director or from the pastor. You'd be like, you got to learn this, you got to learn that. And so you kind of get caught in this mode where all you're doing is learning songs so you can be ready for the next service. Learn the stuff you need to know so you can play for the next service. And that becomes your hamster wheel. And so you don't get time to step outside your bubble to see what else is out there. How can I learn other keys? Or how can I learn, more advanced concepts? So that's some of the stuff we want to look at here for today. Piano lovers here. Of course, man. This is where all the pianists hang out. Paris. Ooh. Anyway, I'm getting distracted by the chat. So I'm going to tell you real quick what I do. Because right after I started learning piano, I sort of put myself in the position to play for choirs and church. I didn't know much, but I wanted the experience. I wanted the exposure. And that's a side note right there. For those of you who have been saying, man, I want to play for my church, or there's a position open up for me to play for my church, but I'm waiting. I'm just going to hand back and wait until, I can play good, then I step in. I would say don't do that. Step in right now. Even if you can only play in one key, jump in. Don't use that transpose button though, but I want you to jump in, because the experience that you're going to gain playing in front of people and playing on a weekly basis, you will not get that experience. You will not get that sort of training if you just hang out in your room practicing and saying you're preparing so you can be ready to play in church. It never comes. There's always going to be something that's going to deter you from stepping into that role which the Lord has called you for. So if there's a position in your church to play, go play. If there's a position opening up and you're the next best fit to be able to step in line, don't wait and say, you're going to wait until you're ready. Tell the pastor to go hire someone else or find someone else outside of church to come and play. So I jumped in, and it was tough, but it forced me to learn a lot of things quickly. It forced me to be able to think quickly on the spot. And that's also how I learned how to play in all 12 keys. Because I tell you guys, I've never owned a keyboard that has a transpose button. And that was a blessing that I didn't know was a blessing until later on. So it forced me to learn how to play in other keys. Even if it was just playing triads, 1, 4, 5 chords for everything, it forced me to play in other keys. Now, once I got to the level now, when I could play a little better, how did I avoid falling into that rut, the hamster wheel, where all I was doing was preparing for church the next day? So, here are some tips I'm going to share with you. If you're struggling to play in all your 12 keys, if you feel like you're not growing, these are the things I'm going to say. First thing you want to do is walk with a notepad to church. If you have a smartphone with a notepad, you can use that too. But you're going to walk with that to church. And every song that the congregation raises, or the pastor starts singing, or the song service director starts to sing, you're going to write down the title of that song. And this is a journal, a running list of song journal I want you to keep for at least a year. You're going to write down every song the church does. And the reason why you want to do that, because you want to be able to learn those songs inside and out. And the reason why I say you want to do that for a year, because after a year, you'll have a pretty stout list of songs that the church do. But the good news is that a lot of those songs will be repeated. Week after week, a lot of those songs will keep coming back up. So you're trying to make sure that there's no surprises. So as you start to keep the list of songs, you're going to make sure you know all those songs in every key. Just those ones on the list. Because the thing is, there's so much songs out there. Billions of songs at this point. A lot of gospel songs. You can't learn all of them. And not all of them are important for you to learn now. So if you're an active church musician, or if you want to be an active church musician, you have to be able to play the songs that's done in your church. And you don't want only to know that they were going to do these songs on the day of. You want to be prepared. And so you start to keep a running journal of all the songs doing church. Write down the title, write down the artist if you need to. So you have that list. And that's going to be the songs you work on. Nothing else. All the other cool songs out there, they're not as important as the ones on the list. Because the ones on the list is what's going to prepare you to not only be comfortable to be able to play those songs, but you're going to try and learn those songs in all 12 keys. Because, Kat said, ooh, I can crush that song in the key of C, but man, if they put that song in the key of F, I can't play it. So once you start to learn those songs, you start to learn them in all the different keys. Because you never know what key the church is going to throw it in. Or you might have a guest singer comes and they decide to change the song in another key. So many variables. And to avoid you being constantly stressed out, trying to figure out what's going to come next, you're going to learn the song. One of the questions I get a lot from emails is, how do I play a song that I've never heard before? How do I accompany a song for a singer I've never heard before? And the reality is that that's an experience you develop over time. It's not a beginner skill, but you can train yourself to be more prepared if you keep a running list of every song raised in the church. If a guest singer comes and sing a song you don't know, make sure that song gets on your list. So the next time that song is raised, you're ready. And this is something I've been practicing for years. Back then, when I started out, smartphone wasn't really a thing, so I kept a little notepad. I just write songs. Now I have a running journal. Check this out right here. If I go in my iPhone and I go on the notepad and I go songs, what are those? Worship song tutorial. Check this list. You see that? You see my running list? And a lot of these songs are just songs that I come across on the radio, and I say, I need to learn that. Or people email me and say, yo, can you do a song breakdown on that? And I go, I sure will, and I put it on my list. Now, if you guys have Pandora or Spotify, then I create a playlist, a listening playlist. And when I'm doing long driving or, just going for a walk, put in my earbuds and I listen. And that's how I get exposed to so much different passing chords and runs and movements. Some of them I come up with myself, but most of these things I'm learning through listening to other players, and I go, ooh, I like that. I'm gonna go transcribe that when I get home. That one chord right there. And this is how you start to build not only a chord vocabulary, but a song vocabulary. A few weeks ago when I had Sean Wilson on and we talked about transcriptions, if you haven't seen that tutorial, man, you gotta go check that out. It was fire. There was so much important things we discussed. And I'm gonna tell you real quick the tutorial number for those of you who don't know. So that was tutorial number 112. We talk about transcription, and he made a statement in that video that really resonated with me. It's simple but powerful, and he said, your ear is only as good as the chords you know. And I was like, man, do you not even know how powerful that statement is? Because he's so correct. If all you can play is triads, then you won't be able to hear anything beyond triads, because that's what you've exposed your ear to. So if guys are saying, how do I learn these sharp 11s and sharp 9s and altered chords? Well, first you got to start playing them. Just start voicing them. Get used to the sound. You know, at this point, I've created so many tutorials, both on YouTube and both in my membership over at the Piano Lesson with Warren. So many courses that covers these big chords. But you got to start mess around with them enough so they stick with the ear. And then when you're listening to a song and someone pulls out, you know, if they're doing something like, you go, I know those sounds. I've played that before. And the more you listen and the more you practice this stuff, the easier it will become for you to identify. So if you remember nothing from this live stream, remember your ear is only as good as the chords you know. So when you're keeping that running list of songs, create a listening playlist. You can create YouTube playlists. You can create Spotify playlists, Pandora playlists. Find them songs, put them in a playlist. Listen to them. Learn them first in the key that you're comfortable in. Then start to move them to different keys. And once you do that with 2, 3, 4 songs, you're going to start to see so much patterns. So many patterns are just going to reveal to you. I can't even explain to you right now the amount of patterns and just aha moments you're going to have once you start to do that. Your repertoire bank will get stronger, the amount of songs you know. Your chord bank will start to expand, and you'll be able to learn your keys. Like, this is powerful. This is how you get off the hamster wheel, where you feel like you're constantly trying to run to catch up, but you're not really going anywhere. 10 years pass by, and you haven't really improved. You have to get a little bit strategic and specific and deliberate, because the reality is, most of us, if we're not in school, we're working. Some of us probably have 2 jobs. We got kids at home. We got wife. We got husbands. We have an entire life outside of music that we have to attend to. And so how do we make sure that we're consuming the things that are important? Because not everything is equally as important. And I know you jump on YouTube and you see cats doing all this stuff and you feel like, man, I should be doing that too. But that's not really what's important. I mean, if you're playing for your church, what's more important? For you to be able to play all the songs you need to know in the keys that the singers are singing them in? Or is it more important for you to learn all kind of fancy licks and runs and tritones that really has nothing to do with the songs you're playing? So, you know, we have to get sort of real and specific and go, what is it that I need to do to move from A to B? And for everybody, that's going to be different. Everybody's A to B is going to be different because we're all in different situations, scenarios. And so what someone might be working on just being able to play some triads because that's what he needs to work on now. For you, it might be something different. You know, because for example, if you played in a band, church band, and every week, you know, you got your bass player there, you probably need to be practicing more rootless voicing stuff so you can get out of the bass man way. If you don't have a band and it's just you probably need to start thinking about how can I sound more effective as a solo pianist. You know what I mean? You have to practice the skill that's going to enable you to serve your congregation better. For everybody, that skill is going to be a different thing. So when you say, man, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stuck, I don't know what to practice, I don't know what I need to do to move forward, this is my solution for you. Hold up, take a step back, and look at where you are in your journey. There are a couple places. It's either you're already a seasoned gospel musician, meaning you are the music guy for your church. Ain't nobody else. It's you. If you're in that role, then you need to see how can I get better at this role. Start by making the list of all the songs that you know the church keeps throwing at you, but you don't know them well yet. Make those your priority. Learn those songs. If you're an upcoming cat where, you're probably a beginner or intermediate and you're not really the main music guy, but there are a lot of cases where you have to jump in when the main guy don't show up, then you need to make sure you're ready because that main guy can split anytime and you want to slip into that role without the service being interrupted. So while you're in the midst of service every week, make sure you're keeping a list of all the songs he's playing, all the songs people are singing, all the songs the choir are learning, all the songs the choir have learned. Make sure you're keeping that list and you're preparing yourself so when he's not available, you can slip in. This is how you get off the hamster wheel. It's a proactive thing. You have to take this thing into your own hands and say, I'm going to make the change, Because remember, God calls you into this position, but he didn't call you to just come sit and be complacent. You got to now take the initiative to say, all right, what is it that I need to do? Again, you can't do everything. You have to focus on the things that matters. Is it your technique that's the problem? Is it the fact that you don't know enough songs? That's the problem. Is it the fact that you don't know how to play with a bass player or you don't know how to play in a band? Is that the problem? And you got to get real. Once you identify the problem, you got to get real and say, okay, how do I solve this? And if any of you guys need some help figuring this out, at this point, y'all know how to reach me. Email, message in the chat, live on the website, Facebook, Instagram. Y'all just shoot me a message. Tell me where you think your hamster wheel is. What's keeping you on that hamster wheel? And we can brainstorm it together about some strategic plan that you need to implement that will help you get off that hamster wheel. All right? This is something I sort of stumbled into. Nobody told me this, but I just realized that because, I told the story from time to time that I started music at 18. Like brand new, from scratch. 18 years old, getting out of high school, decided that I'm going to dedicate my life to music. And at that point, I felt way behind, man, because there were cats that was already burning. At my age, they were already crushing, playing for massive choirs and bands. And so I was like, I felt like I had 20 years of catching up to do. So I had to figure out how am I going to do all this catching up while living my life? And so I had to start getting strategic about the things I do and how am I going to do it. And I would try different things. And so 16 years now, I'm looking back, I could tell you guys the things that worked for me. And one of them is focusing on the things that's going to help you to serve your current role better. You can't get distracted by what all the other cats are doing and the stuff you see on YouTube. YouTube is the most deceptive place, man, and that's what I tell folks. As soon as you find a teacher that aligns with your values, aligns with the things you want to learn, you need to leave YouTube and go follow that person, because if you just hang out on YouTube and you're following 20 different piano channels, it's going to discourage you. It's going to confuse you because nothing in YouTube is laid out in chronological or sort of systematic order that's going to tell you do this, then that, and that, and that. The other thing with YouTube, and it's weird me telling you this on YouTube, but the other thing with YouTube is that the information may not be designed for your specific situation. So if you're a beginner following cats that just do all the advanced stuff, what do you think that's going to do to your spirit? It's going to crush you because it's going to make it seem like if you don't already know how to do all this stuff, then you're wasting your time. It doesn't do anything beginner or basic or show you a roadmap how to move from A to Z. So that's just a little nugget. You know, YouTube's great for quick information, but if you want to go from A to Z in really taking this piano thing, you're going to have to get beyond YouTube. Okay, that's my YouTube rant for the day. So hopefully that was enlightening and helpful for you guys. How to get off the hamster wheel. We all have busy days, busy life. How can we ensure that we're continually growing with our piano skill? And that's sort of taking stock of where we are, what are we missing? Especially, I'm talking to church musicians now. Folks who playing in church or want to play in church. You got to get specific and realistic with your specific goals, your specific situation. Can't follow what the other guys are doing because you are called to fill the role and the Lord wants you to grow in that role. Wherever he's going to take you, he's going to make sure you're ready. And the Lord will not open doors for you if you're not ready to walk through it yet. You know, so if you're saying, man, I want to play for my church, but you barely know any of the hymns, you barely know any of the praise songs, and you're not doing anything to learn those songs, then you might realize that the time for you to do that is taking longer than you need to. And that's because you're focusing on too much of the shiny stuff that doesn't fit your situation. So that's it. Get off the hamster wheel. All right? So now I'm going to turn to the chat. And as always, I'm just going to answer a few of your questions, especially if you have any questions as it relates to what we discussed today. Let's talk a little bit, answer a few questions on that subject. The chat has been blowing up, and so I'm not going to scroll back through all the way to the top. So if you write something down below, I'm going to start with that. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. You know, as always, I appreciate y'all jumping on, man. I love hanging out with you. Bonnie Simpson, my friend, how you doing? She says, this is so timely. Want to be a help in church. You should do it, Bonnie. You know, you've been following me for a while now, so you know what's up. You know what you need to do, my friend. Okay, let's see what's going on. So he says, Sivian says, or Sivian, he says the transpose button does not work in a live setting in church. I personally have experience on it. Well, Sivian, the transpose button don't work at all in any setting. So you might as well just forget about that button right now. Bobby Allen says, one of my issues is that I have to teach the choir as well as be the band director. Bobby Allen, same here, brother. It's the same thing I do every week. I'm the choir director, and I'm the band director. So you said one of the issues. What's the issue with teaching both band and choir? Tell me. I would love to hear your feedback on that. Tell me what's the issue you're experiencing there. Comment just says, how can I master every key? Well, I kind of just told you how to do that. So, brother, you probably need to go back and rewatch this chat a few times, this live, Because I just told you how you can learn all 12 keys. Oh, he said the transpose button been gone 20 years. That's amazing, brother. Hallelujah. He said the chat has been cut from his side. Anybody else experiencing a cut in the chat? I see messages coming in just fine. So a question says, how much of an influence sheet music has had on you? I'm floating around intermediate level and can only see myself getting to advance with the resource in written music. All right, let's talk about this for a little bit. Because as many of you guys know, I was classically trained. At the age of 18, when I started piano, the guy at my church who only plays by ear, he was teaching me how to play piano. Scales, teaching me some chords, how to play a few worship songs. But then after that year, I decided, man, I want to learn music in its entirety. Which means not only just to play by ear, but I want to learn the theory, I want to learn how to read, I want to learn different genres, I want to learn jazz, classical. So I applied to School of Music. They took me in on what we call a preliminary qualifying basis, which means I didn't have enough skill to get into year one because I didn't really know anything about music. So they say, take this year, learn everything you can, and then at the end of this year, we're going to give you an exam. They had classes and everything, so it's basically preparing me to get to year one. And in that year, I was exposed to everything, and I worked hard, man. I studied and I practiced. I got into year one, and when I got into year one, I had three options. I could either join the music education major, where you learn how to teach music. You could join the classical piano performance major, or you could join, they call it jazz pop studies. I didn't really like how the jazz pop studies department was running. It was a little too loose for me. You know, I was paying thousands of dollars. The classical thing seemed more serious, so I went that route. I learned classical music, and I did that for 8 years, 2 different universities. It was hard because really my heart wasn't in classical piano. I did well because I graduated with honors with my degree. I won a few competitions when they run annual competitions among the departments. I won a concerto competition, and I won also a solo piano something. But I was always listening to the jazz guys. That's really the jazz, gospel, the funk, the blues. That's where my heart was. So even though I was learning music from the sheet, classical, I was still hanging with the jazz guys after, trying to see the chords they were playing and try to improvise and jam with them. So the importance that sheet music has helped for me, it helped me to see what I was hearing, which was great. Because when I hear something and I saw it on the sheet, I go, oh, so that's what it looks like. So what that helped me to do was to be able to learn music faster. Because while I'm reading music, I realized I could then put passing chords in the sheet music. I could improvise on the sheet music, especially when I'm playing hymns. Because for y'all who play hymns, you know that the hymns are just basic, structured 4-note chords. So as I read hymns, I could go, I could do a 2-5 passing there. I mean, this took time. That's not something I just start doing out of the blue. But I use one skill to help the other. Whenever I had to read anything, I could quickly memorize it because I also was developing my ear. So that was the benefit that sheet music had on me. Since I graduated college years ago, I don't do anything with reading anymore. I don't do any gigs that require me to read. I can't even play classical piano anymore. You asked me to play Beethoven Sonata that I won the competition with. I couldn't play it because I don't do anything with note reading anymore. But if someone hand me a score and say, can you learn this? I can still learn it because, again, I'm combining both skills. My ability to hear what I'm playing and memorizing. So if I'm reading a score, I'm sort of analyzing it using the number system. Oh, so that's the 1 chord that goes to the 2, to the flat 6. And I'm analyzing the chords. So then if the sheet blows off the stand, I already have it memorized up here. As long as I've gone through it once or twice, then I can play it from memory and I can improvise on it. So that's the importance that sheet music has had for me. I am not saying now that for you guys who want to excel your playing, you got to go out there and learn how to read music. You don't have to. I learned how to read music because it was the only way I had to. If you go through any form of formal college education in music, you have to learn how to read. Even if you're not a classical major, even if you're just doing jazz or whatever, you still have to learn how to read. So that's how I learned how to read. And it's been an advantage. But right now, I don't do anything that has to do with reading. All the hymns at this point, I've basically memorized most, if not all the hymns done in my church. And if for some reason they pull out an obscure hymn that I'm not familiar with, I could easily read it from the hymnal. So that's my long answer to your question. Let's jump back up and see what's going on in the chat. Lincoln says, I just bought the intermediate lesson. Well, thank you, Lincoln. I appreciate the support, my brother. Steve-O says, I'm a guitar player. Do you think I could apply your course with guitar easily? Well, Steve-O, that's a tricky question because I don't know anything about guitar. You put a guitar in my hands, man, I am as dumb as a baby. I can't play nothing on a guitar. So when you say, can you translate the information easily? Now that's the problem there. I don't know how easy. I could tell you though, Steve-O, you're not the only guitarist that follows a channel. I got a lot of comments and even emails from cats that says they're incorporating my lessons on guitar. Some of those guys who do that already know a little bit about piano, so they can quickly sort of translate it. But if you don't know anything about piano and you're just going to try to do a direct translation, I don't know how well it would work for you. I could tell you though, if you've been following my YouTube videos and you find that extremely helpful, if you're able to translate the information from my YouTube videos onto your guitar, then you'll be able to do the same thing with the paid courses. So that's the best way I can answer that question. Next question, let me see. So a question from Paul says, how is the on the key and off the key role of a pianist? I mean, how present should he be, if that makes sense? How present? So I'm not quite sure I understand this question, Paul. I can tell you though that it doesn't matter where I am. Whether I'm at the beach, a concert, if there's music, I'm awake. My brain is actively listening and analyzing to what I'm hearing. It's just something I've trained myself to do all these years. We call it active listening. For me, there's never background music. There's never just background music. If there's music, I'm listening. And if it's not something that I like, I turn it off. Or I change the station, or I leave the environment. But I'm in the grocery stores, shopping, you got music playing, and I'm listening to it, I'm listening to what's going on. I'm listening to the harmonies. I'm listening to the sounds. I'm listening to the synths there. I listen to everything, man. When it comes to music, I don't put anything aside. So, right here on the channel, we talk all about gospel music and gospel piano. That's what we do. But when I'm listening, man, I listen for everything. Doesn't matter if it's a gospel song, a rap song, a pop song. I'm listening because the thing is, music is a universal language. Music crosses genres and borders and styles. It's the same concept. So when a guy asks me about how can I use jazz concept and gospel or blues concept or rock concept, I'm like, you can use all of it. It's all about the context and what you're trying to do in the moment. But, it's the same information. We got 12 notes. We got 12 associated chords, whether it's minor, major, diminished. The style, how we do it is different. But the information behind the scene, the math, the sort of physics, the structure, the rules are pretty much the same. Okay, let's see what else. Andrew says, I just joined, Warren. When will you be doing this again? I don't know, brother. I try to do one of these once a month. At least that's a commitment I'm trying to make, to at least jump on YouTube live with you guys once a month. But if you're part of my paid program, I do 2 bi-weekly private coaching sessions, and that's where you see my piano up on the screen and we go deep in all sorts of concepts. Please show me how to play You Are Holy with C sharp. This is a little bit too complex for this this live, my brother. That would be a little bit too complex. When do I use a flat 7 chord? That question is too broad. Too many variables. There's so many places you can use a flat 7. So this wouldn't be the ideal chat, unfortunately, to dive in something like that. David says, if you're playing an auxiliary piano, let me read this question internally first. So I can mix it. Any way you can play either soprano, tenor, or alto. So the question, as it shows on the screen, reads, like, if you're playing an auxiliary piano, does any way you can play either soprano, tenor, or alto to complete the band? This question is not too clear. I do know what you mean by auxiliary piano. For those of you who don't know that term, when someone say auxiliary piano, they're talking like if you're playing strings or you're playing some pads. Like if you have 2 keyboard player, one is the dominant keyboard player playing like the piano patch, and you're just backing him up with additional sound. So you might be doing some strings or some pads, or even organs sometimes. We call that auxiliary instruments or auxiliary sounds because they're not the dominant sound. They're just sort of, the addition to fill the gap. But the other stuff you ask, I'm not quite sure I understand it. Sometimes the chat moves so fast, I lose my position. Question says, issue with me is that I play bass, keys, and sometimes drums at church. Okay, so this was in relation to questions this brother asked earlier, where he says he has a problem because he has to be the band leader and the choir director. And his response was, the issue with that is sometimes he has to play drums, bass, and keys. So what you need is more musicians. So you can either go out and find more musicians or train them internally. Get a little 15-year-old kid, start teaching some patterns, on the drums. Build the band internally. Start getting people fired up and interested in being part of the band, because at the end of the day, you're one man. You're playing drums, keys, bass, moving around. That doesn't really help the church to grow musically at the end of the day. We need a group, we need a team. And you have 2 options. You can either go out and find cats locally, bring them into church to play, or start to look within the church. Who could fill these roles and fill them more consistently? Because you don't want someone who's going to show up today and disappear for 2 months. So that would be my recommendation there. Bonnie says, yes, I do. I started out learning hymns, but like you said, my focus changed, thinking I had to build a repertoire of songs first. So, again, your specific situation. So if at your church, what is missing is someone to play the hymns, then you probably need to go back to focusing on the hymns and not so much the worship songs and stuff. It's all about, what does your church need right now musically to grow? And if that's someone to tackle the hymns, because I know some cats in church, they don't know to play any hymn. They could play all the baddest Kirk Carl and Kirk Franklin and Fred Hammond, and they could do some crazy runs and 2-5-1s. You start singing "Blessed Ashore" and he's lost, which is sad. I always say, folks, you got to learn your roots. These old hymns, man, it's where the church was founded on. You got to learn your hymns too. You also should learn some of the contemporary stuff. But this is the moment again where we step back and we go, what is it that's needed in my church? I also know some church that don't do hymns at all. That's okay. If you're at one of them church that don't do any hymns, it's all the modern stuff, then to serve your church better, you probably need to focus on that stuff and not so much the hymns. So, again, everybody's situation is different. Every church is different. And you need to be the best you can be at the moment to serve your church better. Get off that hamster wheel. Okay, what else we got for questions? Man, chat's blowing up. You are invited to come with a church band to the Dominican Republic. Man, I would love to go to the Dominican Republic. But I don't know what I'll do with the Spanish, though. I don't speak any Spanish. I don't speak in Spanish. How is the English down there? Folks will be able to understand me if I be singing in English and playing. What about Psalms? Steven says Psalms. Can we alternate chords on Psalms like you do with gospel? In Norway, we play more Psalms than gospel. It seems more locked than gospel. When you say Psalms, are you talking about hymns? Because I'm not really familiar with how the word Psalms being used now. I know hymns. So if you're not talking about hymns and you're not talking about the contemporary songs, what do you refer to as Psalms? I'm not sure. I was asking earlier how to separate genuine playing from overplaying. Oh, the question says, how do you separate genuine playing from overplaying? I'm a keyboardist in church and I used to play gospel licks, but they always accuse me of overplaying. I just did a little snippet video about this, and a lot of cats in church overplay. A lot. And I'm guilty of that too, I'm not going to lie. I sometimes overplay. I've gotten better over the years because I've gotten more in tuned to worship. When you go to church and your primary goal is to worship, you kind of don't overplay as much because you're not about trying to get people to look at you and say you're a bad keyboard player, man, you're on fire. That's not your goal. The goal is not for you to glorify yourself. Your goal is to say, how can I better paint this atmosphere for worship? How can I usher the Holy Spirit in? And once you keep that thought in the forefront of your mind, you're going to realize that a lot of them runs that you're trying to do, it's just unnecessary. There's no hard and fast rule to this. It's just really something you got to constantly asking yourself. What I'm doing right now, is it benefiting the song? If it's not, don't do it. And like anything else, the more you practice this kind of self-restraint, the easier it gets, the better you get at it. And then you start to listen more about what the song requires. And you start to add it. This is one of the key secrets to becoming an advanced player. I don't know how many guys know cats like Stevie Wonder, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, just all the baddest keyboard players on the planet. I've been to many concerts and I watch these guys, and the level of restraint that they show it's incredible. Like, these guys can rip for 45 minutes. Runs, lines, and passing chords everywhere. I saw Corey Henry about 8 months ago. Live. I was like 2 feet from the stage. That's how close I was. In his restraint, it was two keyboard players, him and another kid. But when it's time to just play chords, he never broke from that. He was just playing chords. Not one lick, not one run. When time come for him to rip, he would rip and then he would just go back to playing chords. You know, it's knowing what the song requires in the moment. That's what separates these guys. It's not about ego for them. They're listening at such a different level that they're making decisions solely based on what's happening in the room, what's happening on stage, what's happening with the music. They're there to serve as a musical vessel. And that kind of restraint takes practice, it takes experience, it takes a lot of control. And that's something I've been dabbling with over the years. How can I get better as a band? Because when you're playing in a band with 4 or 5 people, you gotta leave room for everyone else to say what they gotta say. Especially when you're playing with a guitarist. Remember that a guitarist can play lines too. It's not just keyboard players. So you gotta make sure that you're giving the guitarist room for him to play a little line here and there. You gotta remember too that the keyboardists play chords. So you can't be going wild with substitution and he don't know nothing about what you're doing. You gotta give him some room. You know, you gotta communicate, you gotta listen, you gotta make sure that you're staying out of the bass man's way. You gotta make sure that you're lining up with the pocket of the drummer. It's a whole lot of communication, and all this sort of communication is done nonverbal. There's no words being thrown around, it's just listening. And the more you do that, the better you get. When you see a band and you say, man, that band is tight. They're tight because everybody is listening. No one is overplaying. No one is stepping on anyone's toe. And, you know, they're only making decisions that serves the band. And this is just something that comes with practice. But before you can start to practice these things, you first have to be aware, be conscious that I may be overplaying. How do I stop overplaying? You know, and once you start to ask yourself that, how can I make better musical decisions? You'll get better at it, you know? But it's a process. It's not something that you just press a button and boom, you stop overplaying. Because you got to wrestle with the guy inside. We all have this guy inside, the guy who just he wants the glorification. He wants all the light. He wants all the attention. We all have that guy inside. And we got to just tame him like, yo, chill out. Got to push him down, you know, so that the guy who makes decision based on, you know, music and what's going on in the atmosphere can step forward and make sure that the guy inside who wants the self-glorification, you know, you keep him subdued, keep him sedated so he doesn't take hold of the service. All right, man, you guys asking some great questions today. Marco says, Steve-O, check out Rick Beato on YouTube for some dope guitar stuff and really in-depth theory. Yeah, Rick, I follow Rick too. He just hit 1 million subscribers. It's crazy, man. I don't know how he did it because I remember when Rick had about 150,000 subscriber and his channel blew up. But his channel, he covers everything about music, not just piano or guitar. He covers a wide range of stuff, so he reaches a bigger audience. But yeah, Rick is dope. He definitely has some good stuff about guitar theory. Bonnie says, my fear has been when a song comes up I don't know. I know I should not play. However, I am currently focused on learning the scales progression in all keys. Remember we talked about it early at the chat, Bonnie? A song come up that you don't know, make sure it's on your list. Every church that I've been to has a set amount of songs that they recycle. They may bring in some new songs from time to time, but there's a core 20, 25, 30 songs that they get cycled. So once you make sure you have every song that is raised on your list, that's great. One of the things I like about my church is that every week the pastor sends out an email with all the songs we're going to do on Sunday. We might add additional songs in the midst of service, but for the most part, we try to stick to those songs as listed. The beauty about that is that I can go back and look at every song we have done for the year. And it's a great resource to sort of build a nice playlist. So, whoever at your church does the music preparation for service, you should be like, hey, can you email those to me? If there's a week you miss church, can you email me the songs y'all did last week? Or can you text them to me just so you don't miss anything? And just put them on your list. Eventually, there will come a time, if you're working through those lists, that most of those songs you're going to know. So when they raise a song in church, you're going to be like, I worked on that song yesterday. And you can play along. But if you just kind of sit and wait and be like, how do I learn the songs that I need to learn? And so you go on YouTube and you start learning a bunch of random songs, half of them your church don't even do at all. Then that's not solving your purpose or your problem. You need to make sure you're working on the songs that your church are doing first. Once you know those songs, you can go explore other songs. But every song done at my church, I know it inside and out, backwards, forward, in all 12 keys. So, and that's just something I've practiced over the years, so I've gotten good at it. But if you start now doing that, just imagine in 4 months how far ahead you're going to be. Imagine in 5 years how much further you're going to be. This is how we do it, step by step. Yeah? My phone's blowing up. Anyways, let's see what's going on in the chat. Being in a church and maybe the pastor asks for a song you really don't know. How do you go about it? Moses asked that question. So Moses, I don't know about you, but me and my pastor has a very good relationship. Meaning, he almost knows every song I know. He wouldn't be like, Warren, I'm going to sing the song, play. He wouldn't drop that on me in church. Now, we've had guest pastors before who will look over and be like, brother, you know the song? And at this point, again, because I'm experienced, even if I don't know the song, I can be like, go ahead, sing. And I could just sort of figure things out. But when I was just starting out, if someone looked over me and said, I'm going to sing this song, do you know it? And I don't know it, I say, I don't know it, and I don't play it. Sing that a cappella. And this is what y'all have to remember is that nothing is wrong with someone singing a cappella. Not everything requires piano accompaniment. Back in the day, when churches didn't have a musician, they run an entire service a cappella, and the service is still fire. You don't need piano really to worship God. You don't need piano to make sure for the service to be filled with the Spirit. It's nice to have it, but it's not needed. And so if someone look over and say, oh, can you play the song for me? And you don't know the song, just be honest. I don't know the song. Can you do it a cappella? Nothing is wrong with that. The song will be better if it's done a cappella than you trying to fumble your way through a song you don't know, and it just makes it a mess. Nothing is wrong with doing a song a cappella. Just make sure that whatever song was raised gets onto your list. So the next time someone asks you if you know that song, you can say yes. So that's how Moses, I would approach that. You don't know the song, you don't know the song. You can't turn water into wine like Jesus did. So if you don't know the song, the fact that the pastor asked it doesn't mean you're going to automatically learn it or know it because he asked it. If you ask it and you don't know it, you don't know it. Sing it a cappella and everybody good. I know it looks weird when you're up there, someone's singing, and everybody's like looking at you like, is the keyboard player gonna start playing? I know it feels weird, but it's part of the gig, man. It's part of what we sign up for. You just have to make sure you keep learning all them songs so you can minimize those weird moments. So question from Sivian says, It may be hymns. I think Matt of the song. A lot of the songs are international. It's Lutheran Church. So what you can do, brother? Just send me an email with a couple of these, with links to probably a couple of these songs that you're referring to as psalms. I would love to see them, so that I could better answer your questions. But I don't really know what psalms songs are and how different they are from hymns. Singing psalms are the psalms, but okay, let's scroll past that. So question says, I don't know anything about pads, auxiliary keyboard, but they sound nice. Any advice? Well, if you have a keyboard, your keyboard most likely come with that stuff. Let me see what's... Just start to experiment with them. Play them. And then start listening to how the pads are played in songs, because the approach is different than keyboard. So if I'm playing some strings, that was me playing some pads, some strings. And you hear how my approach is different. And I spent a lot of years, again, listening to how orchestra works. And you're going to listen and say, oh, you hear how orchestra lines work, or the strings lines are very different than piano. Pads and strings work similar. And when I talk about pads, I'm talking about just those atmospheric sound. We call them pads, synth pads. But again, it starts with just being aware of these things, and then start to listen to them in songs. Listen to how they're played, because the approach is different. Okay. I'm going to take a few more questions. So, brother says, I struggle to play praise songs. I find it easy to play worship songs. Any advice? And let me explain something real quick. For those of you who wondering, okay, what's the difference between praise songs and worship songs? So, praise songs are the fast songs. The hand clapping, foot stomping, people running around the church kind of thing. Those are what we call the praise songs, The worship songs are the slow, the slow songs that sort of lead people in prayer or worship. So if I'm playing Sweet Hour of Prayer, this is a hymn, but it's also being played in a worship style. And the thing is, why a lot of people find it easy to play worship songs, because they're slower. So you have more time to think about the chord movements. you have more time to take time with the chords. You know, if the songs are slower, it's easier to play. If you're playing a faster song now, like Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, what saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. So that's called praise. It's more hand clapping, foot stomping. How do you get better at playing praise songs? There are a couple things. First thing is you got to improve your technique. Because if someone say, can you run a 100-meter yard? How fast can you run a 100-meter yard? The speed at which you run that 100-meter yard is going to be based on your health, your fitness, you know, how fit you are, strong your muscle are. Basically, it's how good your athletic technique is. It's going to determine how fast you can run that sprint. With music, it's the same thing. How can you play the fast song is going to be, well, how fast can you play your chord changes, which is your technique. How fast can you move on the piano? And so you got to make sure that you're practicing speed. For a lot of you guys who want to get faster in playing scales and runs, speed practice has to be something that you're conscious of. How do you practice speed? Well, you start with stuff like your scales, your arpeggios, your broken chords. You start with slow, and over the course of weeks and months, you monitor your practice speed. So if you can only play your scales here, let me see if I can get a metronome going. You hear the metronome? It says 86. So if I can only play my scales, play your scales like that, that's okay. But a month from now, you should be able to play them faster than that. Probably 5 clicks faster. Month after that, another 5 click faster. So these are something you should be monitoring. And you're recording the speed at which you can play certain things so you can improve it. So if you want to be able to play that Amazing Grace I just did at a fast tempo, first, practice playing it slowly. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. So you got to be able to play it with that sort of feel slowly, and then you can gradually start practicing how to speed up. Now, this brings in a separate issue. You got to start learning that sort of old school style of playing. And this is something I offer on my website. I've been going through a lot of hymns, a lot of the old traditional songs, and I'm showing people how to play them, the different voicings I'm using, the different runs. You go now, you practice those slowly, and over time you gradually speed them up. That's how you get better at playing praise songs. Because if you've never played this kind of style, and Sunday morning worship, the tempo is here, Sunday morning praise, and you're trying to function that speed when you've never practiced or played anything at that speed, it's going to be tough. So you first have to learn the style, learn those little movements for old school, and then you start practicing them slowly and gradually increase the speed. The beauty about this kind of old school style playing it's the same in every key. A lot of the riffs and the movement's going to be the same. Once you wrap your head around what's going on, it's the same thing. But you first have to understand what is it that's going on. All right, and again, pianistwithwarren.com for those of you who haven't been over there yet. There's a lot of goodies. All right, let me see. Man, to be honest, I don't think I'm going to get to all these chat today, my friends. I'm going to take a few more because we have already been online an hour and 10 minutes. Let's see if we can take a few more. Because you see, the thing is, you guys are asking some great questions, man. And I realize I'm taking like 10 minutes on each question because there's just so much that I want to share with you guys. There's so much to the questions that I want to make sure I answer and I get through. Because right now there's 81 people online. So I want to make sure everybody understands and benefit from the questions that's being asked. My buddy says, I play chord and it is boring. I wish to start learning simple patterns. Do you have any simple patterns to teach? I do. My course on rhythm chords, I cover some simple patterns, and this is where we talk about style, because we could play, again, let me take the example of Amazing Grace. We could play Amazing Grace like this, That's a more sort of just like a contemporary style of worship, just a lot of running left hand arpeggios. That's one style. And so when we talk about patterns, that's one pattern or style you want to master or practice. Then we have the old school style that I just talked about, the old slow Baptists, That's more old school. You hear that side of style in a lot of old school Baptist church. And then we can go even more like what we call neo soul R&B with that, where we go. You get more jazz. And so when we talk about spicing up songs, spicing up chords, we first have to talk about what style am I trying to spice up, because the approach is going to be different. If you want to get a more southern style, old school jazz, you probably want to lay off the left hand arpeggio stuff. If you want to get a more contemporary style, then you probably want to lay off the crazy passing chords and that bluesy style. And so it's different. We have gospel music, but within the umbrella of gospel, there's a lot of little pockets of different style. And again, you got to go back and say, for my church, what's the style? What's the dominant style that my church does? And then you need to make sure you're working on getting better with that style first before you start messing with them other styles. So if your church is all about the old school bluesy stuff, then you don't need to know nothing about about the neo-soul chords yet, because that's not going to help you to better serve your church, and vice versa. If you're in a church that does a lot of CCM, contemporary Christian style, sort of, now I got, open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Oh, open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. That's more like rock, contemporary style Christian. I play all those genres. How can I play all those genres? Because I listen to all those songs. And I make sure I'm prepared. I'm trying to learn everything. See, the difference between me and a lot of you guys, this is what I do for a living, man. I play piano and I teach piano. So I have to make sure that I'm prepared. I'm leading the way. I'm learning all the stuff so I can then teach you guys. So you probably won't be going on the same journey as I, because my destination is different. I'm an educator. I teach music and I play music. So my part of my job is to stay in the current, in the know. What's going on with gospel music, different styles. I got to keep up with that stuff. So it doesn't matter what church you throw me in, I'll be able to hang. But for you guys, the most important thing for you is to make sure that you're working on the things that your church requires of you. If that's CCM, contemporary style Christian, then you need to be working on that stuff. If it's old school, bluesy stuff, then you need to put that to the forefront. If the praise stuff, the up-tempo praise stuff is just being thrown at you week after week and you're fumbling, then you probably need to just put everything else on the side burner and focus on the praise. If your church is more into the hymns, then you need to make sure you're working on your hymns. If you want to put a little spice to the hymns, I got this great hymn reharmonized series that's going on over on the website right now. Every month I'm putting out a few hymns and I'm playing them in reharmonized style. So, just give you some ideas to throw a little bit of chords here and there. All right. I'm going to have to take one more question. I'm going to look through, and if you guys, I want you guys to, keep these questions coming in the chat. So after the live end, you won't be able to post in the live, but you can post below the video. So if you have a burning question that you're like, come on, Warren, that I didn't get to answer, just post it in the comment section after the chat ends. I promise you'll get to it. For those of you who've been following me for a while, I answer every question. So you can post it down there because, we got to jump off and do some other stuff. So I can't get to all questions. All right. Let me see who I haven't answered a question from, because I'm seeing a lot of questions, some of them from the same folks. So, last questions I'm going to take from David. He says, what strategies can I use to increase my speed in playing? And I'm going to refer you to the technique building stuff that I do. I know when people ask me about how to improve technique and I tell them this, they look at me a little bit strange, like they were expecting something else. But there really isn't anything else. Scales, arpeggios, broken chords, blocked chords. If you make these 4 things your weekly routine, your technique will improve. There is nothing else. Yeah, you can do stuff like Hanon, You know, for those of you who are in the classical world, you're probably familiar with Hanon technique. That builds technique too, but you know, I've talked about this before. My beef with Hanon is that it's not relatable. It's not directly applicable to songs. So it's a bunch of stuff to strengthen your fingers. I like actionable things. So learning your scales, you're not only building technique, you're learning the scales that you can then use in runs. You're learning how it helps you to learn other keys faster when you know the scales. So it's a multiple things you're solving simply by learning your scales. Your arpeggios. That's me going through major arpeggio, minor arpeggio, diminished arpeggio. You do that for right hand, you do that for left hand. Because when we're playing, we use arpeggios in songs. So again, you're not just improving your speed and your technique, you're improving little lines that you can then use in a song. A lot of times I'm playing and you guys see me do, that's arpeggio. It sounds smoother because I got the pedal down. Step on the pedal, run that arpeggio, you're gonna give you that nice smooth sound. When guys say they're having independence problem, how do I separate my hands? It's the same thing. By practicing everything you do with the left hand, you do with the right hand, it's going to help to train each hand independently. And this separation that you're looking for is going to happen naturally. Scales, arpeggios. When we talk about blocked chords, I'm talking about taking the chords C major, going through the different inversions. C minor. C diminished, and I'm practicing 4-note chords, 4-note diminished chords, because that helps with the stretch also. It's harder to go through these faster because of the stretch, but that's what we call blocked chords. Broken chords now would be the same thing, but you're going in through it in broken. I usually do that with the primary triads. So the diminished, the augmented, the majors, the minors. And the reason why this is all I do to build technique is because if you walk into any university anywhere around the world and you look on their curriculum for technique building, you're going to see these exact things. I'm telling you. I went to 2 universities, spent 4 years in one, 4 years in the other. Went to university, college in Jamaica, the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. It's in Kingston, Jamaica. I spent 5 years there, actually, I've spent 4 years. My first year was a preliminary qualifying basis, and in 3 years, I got a diploma in piano performance. Then I got a full scholarship to come to America. This is how I ended up in America, folks. University of Southern Maine in 2009. Did another 4 years there from 2009 to 2013. And the same thing I did in one college, I did in the other. So I've seen firsthand what college level piano curriculum looks like. And so the things that I'm teaching you guys, it's not random. It's what's being taught all over the world. So if you guys, and you're getting this for free, because I had to pay thousands of dollars for my college education. And I'm giving you guys this. And so when you guys keep asking me the same thing, expecting the answer is going to change, it's not going to change. You want to build technique, you want to build speed, you want to build independence, make these things your musical Bible. Scales, arpeggios, broken chords, blocked chords. Monitor your progress every week. Use a notepad, whether physical or mobile, and you say, I could play my scales nice and easily and comfortably at this tempo. If your keyboard have a metronome, use it. If your keyboard don't have a metronome and you have a smartphone, you can find a metronome app. If you don't have a smartphone, go out and buy a metronome. They're fairly inexpensive. Monitor your progress so you can see, all right, 3 months ago, this is how much my speed with scale has improved. You have to monitor and record the stuff. If you're not monitoring and record things, then you don't know if you're growing or not. There's no way to measure. If you don't have a structure when you sit at the piano, you know what you're working on, then every time you sit, you'll just play the first thing that comes to mind, and you do that for 20 minutes and then you get up. But you really haven't practiced. You just kind of just dabbled. And then 10 years pass and you haven't really grown. You got to measure, you got to have structure, and you got to take action. For those of you guys who haven't picked up my free practice template yet, you're missing out, because in that I tell you, hey, spend this amount of time doing this amount of time, and I make it so that you can tweak it. So if you're like, I want to change, I made it so you can move things around to suit you. But it's never been easier to learn piano because of the internet. It's very easy now to learn piano. You just have to get focus, and you got to take action. You can't just sit and binge watch 20 YouTube videos a day, then do nothing and say you're frustrated because you're not improving. I won't go into a rant, but I just want you guys to know that a lot of the information that you want to grow already exists online. It's there. You just got to find it and then put it into action. Make it applicable to your situation, not anyone else's, not what someone else telling you to do. You got to sit and figure out what is right for my situation so I can be a better gospel musician. And then you find a person who's giving you that information and you work with that person. Once you get to the level now where you're pretty comfortable with your church music, you can play all the stuff nicely, then you can start to step outside of that to see what else is going on, to challenge yourself. But if you're still a church musician struggling, that's because you haven't narrowed down the critical things that you need to work on. For some person, it might be technique. For some people, it might be songs. They don't know the songs yet. Make a list. For some people, it might be both. They don't know the songs yet. They don't have no technique yet. But you got to figure that out, and then you got to take action. All right? That's what I got for you guys today. So, as always, thank you for sticking up, hanging out with me online. I love doing these live. I promise I'll do at least once a month where I just jump online. We talk about different things, do some Q&A. Lastly, before I go, I run a membership over at pianist.com. That's what I do. I create courses every week based on requests, based on where I see people need help. And it's a membership, meaning you pay month after month, and I continue to serve you with content, song breakdowns, tutorials, lessons, live streams, email support. I do all of that. That's what I do. This is what I do full time. And so if you guys have been following the channel and you'd be like, I like these content, but can he really help me? Yes, I can help you. I prioritize those who join my membership. I make sure that I work with you to help you to achieve your goals. But you got to remember that you also have to take action. So if you haven't been over to Piano Lesson with Warren yet to check out the membership, go check it out. See if it's right for you. Because I don't want people to sign up if they don't think it's right for them. Because really, it's not right for everyone. But based on the emails and the questions I get every week, I know most of you, it's right for you. It will definitely transform a lot of your playing. Especially when it comes to how do I use chords? How do I use reharmonization? How do I play praise songs? What are those runs and movements these guys are doing? And all of that's over there. I create MIDI, lead sheets, backing tracks. I'm doing everything to make your process easier. All right? So, head over to pianolessonwithwarren.com. Check it out. If not, totally cool. We can just hang out here on YouTube. All right? So until then, keep listening, keep singing, keep practicing, If you have a burning question that I didn't get to today, put it in the chat and I'll hit you up with a reply soon, all right? So you guys be blessed now. Love y'all and take care.